our next panel is all about the future of digital experiences. So we are basically looking at this and exploring the case for an omnichannel approach. So introducing my panel today, we've got Adam, we've got Eric, we've got Will, and we've got Jack. Hey guys, thanks for joining us. So kicking off, I'd love you all to just give everyone a little intro about yourselves. Adam, do you want to kick off?
Sure thing. Great to be here. Thanks for having us, and hello to everybody. Adam Zeitsiff here with Intelivideo. We are headquartered in Denver, Colorado, and I'm sitting here from sunny Dallas, Texas today. Excited to be here. We obviously provide a hybrid platform that integrates with point-of-sale platforms like Glofox and helps customers implement a hybrid solution, which we're talking about today. So excited to be on this panel with some really cool people who I admire, and excited to chat with everyone today.
Amazing, great. And Eric?
Yeah, thank you, Alexandra. I'm excited to be here as well. Adam, it's good to see you. Jack and Will, nice to meet you. Yeah, so I've been in the industry for about 15 years now. I was a independent gym owner for about 9 years and sold those in 2017. Moved on, started the Future of Fitness podcast, the Fitness Blitz radio, and the Black Diamond podcast. So overall, I've over 4.5 years, almost 5 years now, I have interviewed close to 700 fitness professionals and learned a lot. People like Adam and Jack, and soon to be Will, I'm sure, will come on the show if he'll take my invitation. Currently, I am podcast host. I am the head of business development for Morpheus Laboratories. I am co-founder of Level 5 Mentors, and in my spare time, I'm working on a soil regenesis project up here in Northwest Montana. So keeping myself busy, but my heart is in the fitness industry, and thanks for having me, Alexandra.
Wow, really diversifying there with soil. Thank you.
Yeah.
And over to you, Jack.
My name is Jack Thomas. Pleasure to be here. Nice to meet you, Alex. Good to see you again, Eric. And yeah, just a real pleasure to be on such a great panel with great guests. So I am the CEO of BASE, first and foremost. I do wear a couple of different hats. We have 3 locations in central Bangkok. We are looking at expansion, but that's kind of been put on hold for now. The other hat I wear is as the host of the Fitness Business Asia podcast. So we've had Eric on the show before, and I will get Adam and Will on at a later date for sure. So I've spoken to many people in the fitness industry, mostly around Asia, but we've started to bring on guests from around the world to kind of help raise the standards of the fitness industry in Asia, which is our mission. I am based in Thailand. We are currently deep into lockdown, our heaviest lockdown yet. So that means we've shifted back into online, back into digital. So there's lots of stuff that I can share surrounding that today. And I guess that's the perspective that I bring as a gym owner with 3 locations, you know, running those studios both offline and online.
Great, thanks. And absolutely, I think especially the period we're in at the moment, lots of different regions across the globe are in different scenarios. So I think that makes for a really interesting conversation for everyone today. So thank you. Over to Will.
Hey, I'm Will. I'm the founder of Shift Fitness, which is an instructor training brand. Think Zumba, but for functional fitness. So we train instructors and allow them to teach our classes in gyms, and obviously provide that to gyms as well. They can teach on demand, virtual or live stream. So when everything happened last year, it meant that they could sort of pivot digitally pretty fast. I'm also a consultant in the fitness industry. I started my career along with Emma Barry at Les Mills in New Zealand, as you can probably hear from my accent. And along the way, I've also worked for Beachbody, and most recently was the general manager of ClassPass in London. So I've done a bit in the gym space, the boutique space, and now I do a bit of consulting, as well as with Shift, focusing on instructors and gyms and providing them with content.
Nice. So I think we can all agree we've got a pretty impressive panel here. And actually, it's worth me mentioning before we kick off that we've actually got some great prizes to give out off the back of this roundtable. So I believe we have from Eric, 6 months access to Morpheus platform and an in-person training for Morpheus Hub. So thank you, Eric. And from Will and Jack, they've provided free fitness business consultations. So we will be handing out prizes for those for the best questions in the Q&A. So get your thinking caps on. We'll be announcing the winners tomorrow. So keep an eye on social for that. So let's kick off. Obviously, the past year and a half has kind of proven pretty tough for the entire fitness industry. And we've seen kind of a big resurgence with digital experiences, both on and offline. So I'd just love to hear from each of you how the kind of digital experience part of the business has really impacted what you've been doing over the past year or so. And also, I guess, how you see it playing out in the future. So Jack, do you want to kick off?
Sure thing. So when we went into our first lockdown in March 2020, we'd been considering online options for a while, but it suddenly became a necessity pretty much overnight. So we worked really hard to just get that up and running as soon as possible. So that meant one-to-one coaching online, it meant pre-recorded on-demand classes, and it meant live classes as well. And we saw a really big uptick straight away. I think people were very keen to jump on. We invested a lot into the quality of our production as well. And that was a big one for us, because by filming good quality videos with timers and everything else on the screen, it was, you know, very easy to follow, and we could use those videos. We still use them now, and they're still bringing in revenue now. So that was big for us. When we opened up 2.5 months later, we saw a very sharp drop in our live classes. So we took those off the schedule quite quickly, but we still had our on-demand videos that we used for, you know, upsells for clients. You know, they could have free access. If they bought sort of 6 months or 12 months, we could use them for that. And we still had people that were paying monthly and still using, you know, the videos and the service. This year, we went back into lockdown. So we had a good 9 months of no lockdown and pretty much back to business as usual, which was great. And then this year, we've pretty much been in lockdown the whole way through. We had a month really of full business. And the shift back into classes has taken a while, as we've had to get deeper and deeper into lockdown for people to jump back on. But we've seen our numbers jump up a lot recently. We've been running sort of specific challenges, which has really helped. So when we went into a 14-day lockdown, we had a 14-day challenge. And that really helped people jump on, rather than just, hey guys, when you're ready, come and do a class. So that works well for us. And with us going even deeper, we recently did a Adidas BASE 30-day challenge, because everyone kind of knows that we're not going to open up for 30 days now. Working with our sponsor Adidas, we've got, you know, shoes that they can win, stuff like that, incentives for hitting a certain amount of classes, working with local partners. So that works well for us. And we've recently just done remote programming through TrueCoach, which has had a really good uptake. So it's a new service that we've offered. Again, as we've gone deeper into lockdown, people have been more open to these things. And that's just one-to-one programming. Starts off with a call, and then it's done through the app. You can share videos, you can chat with the clients at any time. So now we have quite a few different services that we're running. I believe that remote programming is one that we will continue after we open up. I think there still will be a demand for that. Live classes, I think, will be a similar thing to before, and that people just want to get back in the studio really, and it's hard to replicate that in-studio experience. But again, there's the on-demand videos, and people were using those all through last year. So that's a library that we can just keep adding to. We have about 100 videos. We'll continue to add more. You can even film the live classes when you do them and add them to that library. I know some studios have done that and had a lot of success with it. So we're deep in online now. We'll sort of continue to refine and shift our offerings, you know, as we kind of shift, hopefully out of lockdown forever, but we'll have those options, you know, if we need to go back to them.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, to your point, that it almost becomes an added value piece, right? You know, having that content there that you can have as, an upsell, or, you know, kind of like a membership edition is definitely, you know, a valuable, like, kind of lever really for us now. Just be great to hear from you, Will, like how you've dealt with it at Shift.
Yeah, sure. So Shift has been around since 2016, but we had a lot of growth in 2019. And as I mentioned, I was actually working for ClassPass, and I had a team that was working at Shift. So at the end of 2019, I decided to go full-time with Shift, and ironically left ClassPass in March of 2020 with the plan to work on Shift and do a bit of digital consulting for boutiques, because that's kind of my background, working on fitness content and then understanding what boutiques are doing. So obviously it wasn't great initially, because no classes meant instructors didn't want to pay the monthly subscription because they had no ability to use it. So for us, it was a case of very quickly educating them on how they could go online. One of the good things about the way we created the program, having worked for other companies like Les Mills and Beachbody, is that we created it with no restrictions on where and when you could teach. So our instructors were able to go online immediately without any license problems, because we use music differently to how other people use it. So they could pretty much record or live stream. So live stream or on demand immediately. But the thing they really struggled with was the technical side of it, in terms of these are people that, like many studio owners, had never done any digital. And so they needed to pivot immediately into understanding the technological side. So how do they get sound? How do they get video? How do they make their audio work? How do they play it out? So for the first 2 or 3 months, the primary job was just helping studios that I was working with and individual instructors and everyone in between with making the jump to being able to be a producer as well as a fitness business.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, a lot of people can relate to, the tech difficulties around trying to adapt and pivot in that way. So thank you for sharing that. Adam, it would be great to hear from you, obviously, from the kind of tech provider side of things, what you've seen over the past year and how you've seen businesses kind of using, obviously, Intelivideo in this way to help them adapt and change.
Yeah, it's certainly been interesting. I think pre-pandemic, Intelivideo, who's been doing this since 2014, so we're not a young company per se, and didn't come on the scene when this happened, but we were a nice to have prior to the pandemic. We had, some really large brands who were forward thinking and innovative and who had deployed digital platforms and were monetizing on demand, just because eventually the world thought that would be a big part of what's happening, right? And then March of 2020 hit, and we certainly very quickly became a must-have. And really over the first 3 or 4 or 5 months of the pandemic, it was all about how do we help customers deploy an emergency situation, if you will, right? Where they need to get content out, whether it's their own people, like Jack mentioned, whether it's content from folks like Will or other people. They just had to get something out there so that they could offer something to their members to keep them engaged and to ensure that they could get through the pandemic and maintain a relationship with those members, help them get through it from a mental, physical, and health perspective. And so that's what we spent the first 4 or 5 months. And then through the fall, into the winter, and now into this year, really it's all about how this becomes a permanent part of their business model. And I know we're going to talk about some of those things later, but that's really what we've been focusing on now, is how do we make this a permanent part of the business model? How do we look at this as this holistic kind of omni-channel approach? And that's what we've been helping more and more fitness operators globally do over the last 6 or 9 months, although we thought we're coming out of the pandemic and now we're working our way back in around the world. But hey, unfortunately. So, but that's really the focus now, is how do we talk through this and how do we make this really a part of what we do long term? Again, it might be a little bit more of an emergency situation right now, but eventually it's gonna play out as part of the everyday fitness experience, and that's what we're focused on these days.
Absolutely. And yeah, definitely interesting to hear that side of it. Eric, as well, obviously you speak to a lot of different business owners, have you seen any kind of key indicators that maybe kind of nod to the fact that this is, the digital space is going to be here to stay, even in light of, the reopening of brick and mortar?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, not being involved directly in the brick and mortar, although I did have clients at the time, and then we took a time out as try to figure things out through the pandemic. But it's been having Connor, the CEO of Glofox, on. He was I think that was about 6 months ago, very interested and very optimistic about the future of brick and mortar and what that looks like. And a lot of people did obviously pivot. There was a big necessity to figure out, hey, how do we make this through it? It was confusing. Everyone was a little bit lost. Everybody had and still does, if I had a crystal ball, or if anybody on this panel had a crystal ball, it would be great, but we don't. And coming in and out of it, it's just been reactionary. It's hard to do long-term strategy planning. And it's just been really interesting time. I mean, when I started the Future Fitness podcast and sold my gyms, that was 2017. I knew that there was change in the air. The fitness industry hadn't really adopted a ton of technology. There was antiquated business systems and things like that. And I guess one of the positive things through the pandemic was that we accelerated the growth of all that technology and really started to advance it. I mean, I don't know exact numbers, but I think there was $4 billion of investment money that came in to the industry in 2020. I would never have imagined something like that happening before that. So it was interesting. It's been tough for a lot of people. I want to be, respectful of that. As the industry overall, I think it's took some significant changes, and now we're just living in the middle of it right now and seeing how it all pans out. So yeah, it's not boring, I guess is what we could say.
Absolutely. And I think, we heard from the guys earlier in the first roundtable, how a lot of businesses have obviously not thought about creating content to be online. It's actually forced them to go in that direction. Are you seeing much in the way of, I know you mentioned you can't kind of build long-term strategy, but are you seeing much in the way of how businesses are shifting more towards thinking about building out a content library, how that really fits into their kind of wider, I guess, strategy now?
Yeah, I am. I mean, I think when this whole thing started, the pandemic, said that word a million times now over the last year and a half, I think there was obviously a very reactionary period. People needed to go directly to whatever tools they had, right? There was the Zoom and the Instagram lives and things like that, just kind of surviving and trying to figure out how to connect and how to serve their clients in a new way. And communication was key. I think that was basis of everything, is how do we continue to communicate with these people, find out what problems they're having, help them address, still be a big part of their life. So a huge reactionary period. Then of course, companies that were already set up to deal with that, right? The connected fitness companies, Peloton being the best example, they just thrived, right? It was just, hey, we already have everything in place. Now everybody else is essentially jumping off the cliff and trying to build the plane on the way down. And that's a difficult thing to do. Now, and when you start to see what like companies like Intelivideo and what Adam does, it made things a lot easier. It was a package thing that people can do. But ultimately, I think the question for people is, do you have the time and resources now to do it right? And that's the big question. I think everybody wants to rush to it, but you can do, I mean, if you're a brick and mortar and that's your core thing, then probably stick to it, look at different options. And we'll talk about, I'm sure on this panel, about the new technology ecosystem that we have. There's a lot of different ways to leverage technology, but that's the big thing is I think if you have the time and resources to make it work well, then it should be considered. If you're on the fence, maybe you should talk to somebody like some of these smart people on the panel and figure out if it's the right strategy for you.
Absolutely. And that makes total sense. I guess kind of shifting more to looking at, what an omni-channel, I mean, it's so easy to throw this word around. What does an omni-channel experience actually look like? Jack, for example, obviously you being, a brick and mortar. How is that playing out for you? Whether it's kind of in studio, it's kind of moving more to the online fitness space, or even, integrations with like wearables and things like that. Like how does the omni-channel experience look for you, for your business?
Yeah, well, I think Eric made a good point that it was just panic stations in March 2020. Like, what do we do? What do we do? Quick, let's do something. And the quality was typically low. I remember every time I went on Instagram, there was just 501 free lives from every influencer on the planet, very, very low quality, a lot of people giving out free content. And it just took a while for people to find their feet. Now, most markets have kind of been in and out of lockdown a few times. So you just kind of get a sense for your clients, where you're positioned in the market, where you're positioned in the world. And you get a sense for like what's going to work for you and what's not. So as I mentioned, live classes for us when we're open and when we're running, isn't particularly popular. It might be different when we open this time with cases a little bit higher, and maybe we'll continue it. And that's something that we did play around with. So I think it's going to be a little bit different for everyone. That's what we've found. But as I mentioned, obviously the pre-recorded workouts, of course, are always going to be available because they're pre-recorded and you already have them in your library. I think we will continue the online personal training and remote coaching, because another cool thing about that is our personal trainers that have had clients move abroad, they've been able to continue training them, which is really cool and not something that we were able to do before. The other channels for us, we've focused heavily for the last 3 years on developing our own technology called Baseline. And so over the last year and a half, we've been thinking about how we can incorporate that more into clients' lives so they can connect with us outside of the gym as well. So that's provided a whole nother channel. In a nutshell, it's a system that we've developed to track and record your results as you go through a group class. Now, it presents your data on the screen. The coaches have access to that data as well, so they can really personalize personalize the class to you. They can push you at the right times and kind of make sure that you're hitting your personal best if you're feeling really good that day, or scaling it back if you're not. Now we're building in social features into that so that when you hit a personal best, you know, your friends can see, they can comment on that. You can add people, you can have groups, league tables, all this kind of thing. So now that we've developed this technology, there's so many cool ways that we can either integrate other platforms, you know, like MyFitnessPal or Malzone, you know, things like that. And it's another way that our coaches can connect with people outside of BASE as well. So that's like a whole nother channel that we've created and we've developed. And it's really got us thinking about how we can really use that in the best possible way now that the landscape has changed. You know, we're talking to Malzone about introducing that into Baseline and also into BASE as well. And again, that's a great way that people can do their own workouts outside of your gym and still kind of stay within your little ecosystem. So that's a few things that we're doing. I think it's good not to try and take over the world. You know, understand what you can be great at and what you can't. You know, it's difficult to compete with the likes of Peloton, you know, and the other great providers. So it's good to kind of focus on your community. That's what we've done, right? You know, our clients go to our live classes and they watch our videos because they know us. You know, they trust us, they like us. But, you know, I've seen some gyms invest a lot into doing super high quality videos, you know, when really they only had a small community themselves. And I think, you know, over the last year and a half, I've seen that's not being a great investment for them. So it's different market to market. These are my experiences, you know, in Thailand, in Asia. But from what I'm hearing, you know, other studio owners have said similar things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, touching on the point of the type of business that you are as well, like, for example, from some of our internal data, we've seen that yoga communities, for example, actually are maintaining more of an online experience even out of lockdown than any other kind of category within the fitness industry. So I think that's exactly it, right? You know, it's kind of looking at your own business and identifying where to put that investment.
Yeah, yoga and bar translates quite well, I think, to online. You know, it's a similar experience with what we do with our technology and the equipment we use. It's just quite hard to recreate that, and we quite quickly get leveled with you know, other HIIT and strength studios around the world. So yeah, that's why we kind of focus on the in-person experience and then linking that in with the technology. And you know, moving forwards, we'll see if we can link in some of that content with our tech as well. And that's where, you know, platforms like Intelivideo come in as well.
Absolutely, yeah, makes total sense. Will, it'd be great to hear your thoughts as well. You know, obviously, I know Shift is a totally online platform, but I know you kind of consult as well with other businesses. You know, what have you seen out there?
Yeah, I think that it's interesting that we're now talking about omnichannel, because I think it's a word that's been bandied around in a lot of other industries for a while now, and we're quite late to the punch. If you think about retail or the restaurant industry, I used to work with Deliveroo, so this is something I know very well. And omnichannel is essentially just allowing your clients to access you in the way that they want. And the reason people need to go omnichannel is ultimately a question of convenience. The reason people shop online is because it's more convenient. The reason people will watch a streamed movie instead of going to the movie theater is because it's more convenient. And essentially that is what we need to be focusing our attention on when it comes to fitness provision. They're going to be working out at home, not necessarily because it's a better experience, but it's more convenient, and that makes it better for their current situation. And I think that, like, echoing what everyone said already, a lot of businesses freaked out when they were shut. They jumped on social media, they started doing things for free, and they didn't really think about who they were trying to serve. And when you think about the omnichannel approach, it's what customer are you seeking to serve? Are you wanting to retain existing members? Are you wanting to use digital as a cheaper entry point to new customers that may then become in-person customers? Or are you actually wanting to play in the pure digital space? And as Jack has already mentioned, playing in the pure digital space is extremely hard. There are massive players with massive amounts of funding. And like, it feels like every day on LinkedIn, you see a new IPO or a new funding. And sometimes I feel like everybody is racing ahead. But then I remember, having been involved in these businesses, that a lot of them are paying $101 for a customer with a lifetime value of 100. And so when it all shakes out, they may not still be around. So doing something that you can continue to drive revenue for, that's not going to divert you from your primary business, and understanding what your goal is. And like, I have to echo what Jack said, the most successful businesses that I've worked with in terms of the consulting side are the ones that decided, okay, we want to focus on in-person. We know that we need to do digital in the short term, But they pivoted away and they created some great on-demand content that they could use as a library ongoing, so that when their users were traveling, they could utilize that content and it was good quality. And they also moved into semi-private personal training. So they were doing personal training sessions with, say, 2 or 3 people. They were giving them a list of equipment to buy at their house. And what that meant is that when they reopened, they had an entry-level product that they could use for people who geographically weren't able to go to the gym. And then they'd also opened up their semi-private personal training to a wider area. So this was a London studio. The biggest problem for their private training was that people had to drive into the gym. But now they had people that wanted to come back. And so they had their in-person audience, but they also had people that had set up home gyms that were willing to pay a slightly more premium price for doing private or semi-private training at home. And this will be sort of music to Adam's ears, but the biggest mistake that I saw fitness businesses make was to jump from giving it away for free on social media to creating a bespoke platform that they paid for, because it's just going to be really hard to make back that investment. And like Jack said, just diving deep into creating extremely high quality content that looked really great, but that wasn't serving any particular customer. And they've all gone back into the gym and now no one's watching it. And you've invested all this money in either a platform or content that you now can't leverage. And you didn't know what you wanted to do with it when you made it, because you were just freaking out at the pandemic. Totally understandable. But now's the time to kind of step back and think, what do I want my digital to do? And go back to first principles.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think you touched on a couple of really interesting points there, because, I think the opening up of the digital space has been kind of a panic reaction for a lot of people, and they've not necessarily understood how to kind of maintain that personal member connection, right? Like they almost need to hit the masses. And then again, with how they create their content, not really putting a lot of thought into that. So actually, Adam, it would be quite interesting to hear your thoughts on just those 2 points, like from a, provider perspective, how, and if you've seen, any businesses you've been working with kind of doing that quite well.
Yeah, and I've heard many things on listening to my colleagues here, and there's some great points. I think the first thing we have to remember is that, and Will pointed out, the consumer behavior patterns have now changed. And we have to be respectful of that. It's brick and mortar first and foremost. We're firm believers of that at Intelivideo, but their behavior patterns have changed, and they're going to find the opportunity to work out at home. And they're going to find the opportunity to do it maybe on a Saturday morning before they've got to run off to take the kids to football practice or whatnot. They've got 30 minutes and they're just going to run upstairs and get a workout. And that now that opportunity is there, and that behavior pattern has changed because they've learned that although they don't want to do that 5 days a week at home anymore, they can do it 1 or 2. And it's a nice synergy. And so we're seeing that piece in our customers as they're reopening. That's what's happening. And we are, and Jack hit it, but we are seeing very low traction on live. It's more on demand. When I want to work out, what type of content I want to work out with, where I want to do it. And that's the convenience factor that we're seeing customers look at. And as it relates to content, I think we look at folks and we talk about, how do you engage your members? And I think anybody on this call, anyone listening, for the last 35 years, the health club fitness operators have tried to get members in their gym 1 more day a week, in their studio. How do I get you in here? How do I get 1 more check-in? Right? I think that's what we all strive for. If you got 1 more check-in every week, you were engaged, and you went up from a 1.9 check-ins to 2.9 on average, and that member's probably not going to go anywhere, and you've improved your lifetime values. And now I think digital gives you the opportunity to get that 1 more check-in a week, even if it's not in person. 1 virtual check-in on an on-demand workout or a live stream, and a couple of in-persons, and that member's engaged. And that lifetime value is going to increase, and you don't have to necessarily have them walk into the club. So it's important for the content to be considerate of that. What's going to get them to do that? It's going to be some good quality content from your team. We talk to customers about that all the time. Doesn't need to be Steven Spielberg. That's not what they're looking for. Some great quality that's out there. It needs to be relatable. I need to see a workout from Will, and then I might bump into Will next week in the gym and go, oh, wow, I just did a workout with you online. It was awesome. It creates that hyper-local connection. And even though we all can't compete with Peloton, no operators can compete with them. It allows you to differentiate that. That is a unique fitness experience that Peloton can't give you. You may bump into a Peloton star somewhere at an event, but that's not going to happen. You're going to bump into your fitness instructor, your coach, your trainer in your gym way more often, and that creates that personal bond. When you walk into that gym, whenever you join that gym, you joined because you trusted them with your fitness experience. You have a journey. You made an emotional decision to go into the gym, go in the studio, and have them change your life. And so why not have those same people change your life when you can't get in there? But at the same time, we do talk to customers about mixing it up. You can't be creating 20, 30 workouts a month. So mix it up, get some third-party content, go to Shift, get their content in there, mix it in with your people, keep the categories, and keep it complementary. It doesn't necessarily all have to be exactly what you're doing inside of Jack's clubs all the time. If you're in there, you're getting a great HIIT workout, and Sunday morning you're a little sore, maybe you didn't hydrate enough, you should be able to log in and see some meditation, some stretching, some sort of recovery workout that's complementary to what you're doing in the gym. But why not have your provider and your operator be the one that you trust to get that? So that's how we're seeing customers win. That's how we talk to them about leveraging the consumer behavior change, managing the content, and keeping that hyper-local connection so that you keep that member longer.
Fantastic. And I think our audience will really appreciate that insight, actually. So thank you, Adam. I think, you know, something that we've kind of touched on here, and I know again was actually mentioned in the first roundtable, was the monetization of the digital experience. And obviously, you know, we saw an influx of free content, and then people suddenly realizing, oh God, I've actually got to make a profit. I've got to keep my business going. Eric, I don't know if you've got any thoughts around this, again, like, you know, businesses you've been working with, on how best, you know, for our audience, how would they go about pricing this, not just to, you know, ensure that they are profitable for their business, but they're still kind of adding value to their members?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Once again, I think it's just not to divert it, but it's case by case, you know, for each particular gym owner or chain or whatever it may be. And I ultimately, I mean, taking a step back, I think what Jack said was probably the most important thing is how do you stay connected with your clients? And that's the big question. So, you know, I'll get directly to your question here in a second, Alexander, but when you look at what everything looks like now from a client perspective, is that, you know, Adam mentioned it, like as a client, I may have a Peloton at home, but I'm still a member of your gym. And then I also meet my friends for, you know, walks or hikes. So how do you stay connected? How do you become kind of the central hub of someone's health and fitness? And that could be through more, you know, adding additional offerings and charging money for it, or finding ways to be that central hub. And what I mean is, like, we really did see a decentralization of fitness, you know, within the last year and a half. Like the gym kind of isn't now really the center point, although it can be. It's really that relationship that you have with the clients that makes you the central point of that health and fitness. So you have to become the expert. You have to become the person. Really, we're seeing evolution from fitness to health, which is even better than what we could have hoped for before. So to charge for that, once again, it's the quality of the content. Who are you trying to get? Are you going to take, you know, as a gym owner, as a boutique gym owner, are you going to take, you know, a $250 a month gym subscription and charge money, $30 on top for a streaming service? I wouldn't. If you are looking specifically, if you're an MRR model who has, you know, a one-to-many, and you don't have a gym and you want to build, you know, something like Street Parking now, if anyone knows them out of the CrossFit world, 35,000 subscribers. That company over 2 years is absolutely smashing it. It's amazing. And they just came from a couple Instagram posts and blew up. I mean, obviously they had a lot of influence in the CrossFit space. So I think it really has to differ. What is the business model? You know, are you looking to add additional value to your core offerings, or are you looking to develop a whole new core offering that's going to be your go-to thing that you can feel that you can charge money for? Because there is a ton of free stuff out there, as Jack and Will and everybody said. There's just a lot of free content. I mean, if I want to do yoga, I can go to YouTube right now and find, you know, someone who gets paid on ads, right? Or just subscribers, and they're not going to charge me anything. So how do you compete in that? I think it's case by case. And, but if it's part of your core offering, then yeah, you can find a way to charge for it, but the price point is really differs various amounts across the board.
Okay, thank you. I think that's really helpful, Eric. Okay, so I'm just going to go to our Q&A now. Let's have a look. So I've had a few answers already. Do you see, from Asha Jacobson, do you see online content becoming a separate product or to be used in a club as a complementary product? Anyone want to take this one in specific? What about you, Adam?
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to find my mute button. So you broke up a little bit there, but it was about using the platform either in the club or separate. Is that what I heard?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we find, like I think it was said before, you're not going to compete with the direct-to-consumer brand. So for us, I think we do talk to customers and we work with them, and we suggest strongly they bundle something like this into their top-tier membership. So to Eric's point earlier, if you are 29, 49, and 69 a month, or whatever you are, we strongly recommend, look, what's our goal? Our goal is to drive attachment at the upper levels. We want to drive a higher dues amount. We know those upper membership tiers usually have more engaging features and functionality and services you can get as a member, and there are high value members. So we try to drive attachment there and say that from an on-demand perspective, at least, bundle your on-demand platform with that upper tier membership. Teach your salespeople, your membership advisors, your front desk people the value of those memberships. Make sure it's always open on the screen after you tour someone through the facility, so they can say, hey, here's our membership tiers, here's our triplicate of choice that you're trying to sell them. And by the way, the third one includes this, and this, including, you know, our on-demand platform. Well, let me show you some of these workouts. So this is Sally. She actually teaches, she's teaching right now down the hall, but you can also get her on demand. So the bundling aspect is important because first and foremost, we want members to join the gym, the studio. That's what we're doing here. But the on-demand platform really, as we've all discussed already, complements that long-term. And so tie it to the memberships, bundle it in there. And then if you don't want people to, if people don't want to spend the 69 in that example, they want to stay at the 29, make the on-demand affordable, right? Depending on what your content you're licensing, content's not that expensive and it's high quality. Content you're creating has some fixed costs and you got to manage it. Platforms are very cost effective. Don't try to charge $15 or $20 extra for on-demand. Charge $4.99, $7.99. Start somewhere, get them in there, and get people attached and engaged. And it's a great back to base campaign. You've got a membership base who's coming back in. It's a great either upsell offering to that top tier, maybe the people in the middle, to get them to take that leap to the top, but then also for your, you know, your add-on item, it's a great way to communicate. Back to base, get the first month free, go back to your members if you add this service item, just like you're upgrading maybe towel service or locker service, whatever it may be, same principle. Offer this as something to keep them engaged. And so we find customers have a perfect medium between promoting that, getting salespeople really on board and incented to do so, but also having a story to go back to members to talk about with a very cost-effective service add-on.
Great, thank you, Adam. And
back to base. I like that, Adam. Thank you. I might use that.
I was actually gonna come to you, Jack. Obviously, you've been doing loads of content. I just wondered what your take is on this. You know, how you use it internally as well as externally.
Sorry, the question again?
How you're using video kind of on and offline, but like in club versus, you know, as a digital experience.
Yeah, second what Adam said, really. You know, we have it as kind of a separate offering. You know, we don't have it. We're not using that in club. It's something that we offer all of our members, especially the ones, as I mentioned before, that have bought the higher tiered packages, the more valuable packages. It's just an easy thing that you can package in. And just kind of enables you to connect with clients that are away on business. You know, that was, you know, I mentioned before that when March 2020 hit, we'd been thinking for a while of doing this so that we could connect with our members that were traveling in and out of Bangkok. You know, it's a very transient city and there's a lot of expats here. And, you know, so now we have the ability to do that. So it's something that we offer all members and we can just put in for free for the top ones. That's actually just something I wanted to reiterate, I think, on a point that Adam made, and I've heard someone else say today, just the importance of kind of making that session fun. I think it's just a point that's really worth kind of hammering home. Like, we found that when we did our videos, it was a very steep learning curve just going through that process. And we found that the more fun that we had as coaches, you know, enjoying the sessions, laughing, going along with, we had one coach at the front and two people at the back, make fun of them a little bit, push them a little bit harder. You know, we found that those videos were by far and away the most popular videos. And that's something that we took onto our Zoom sessions as well. You know, use everyone's name at least once, enjoy it, dance around, make a bit of a fool of yourself. Like, you know, what we have over Peloton is our community, right? And they know us and they like us. So you got to play on that as much as possible. It was just something which I thought was worth reiterating that Adam mentioned.
No, absolutely. And look, I think those are really good points. Like a lot of people that, as you say, are, sticking with their existing, fitness businesses are there because they bought into them as a brand, right? And I think there's probably a fear, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's probably a fear for a lot of people that they need to produce really polished, perfect content, when actually the most engaging is content that's just a bit more human, that have the bloopers, that have those funny moments where someone does something wrong or says something wrong, and it just makes it feel a bit more human, right?
Absolutely. It needs to be a certain standard, but not really much more above that.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got another question here through from Buddy Morin. To any of your guests, please, how do you see the advances in AI or holograms, etc., integrate into the creation of digital content in the fitness industry? So that's quite a futuristic one. Who wants to take that one?
Eric's probably good for that one, I reckon.
Yeah, I would love that one.
Yeah. Eric.
Yeah, I mean, I've been focusing on technology, and it's just a passion of mine, how it's changing the industry. During when I did the Fitness Blitz Radio as a daily podcast, I interviewed about 370 people. At the end of every interview, I always ask, what technology are you most excited about within the fitness industry? And there's so many great answers. I mean, artificial intelligence is a big component. It's a big concept. It means a lot of different things, but what's interesting about what we're seeing right now is the incredible amount of data that's being collected on our clientele and us, everyone, really. So the matter is now you're starting to see a lot of entry, a lot of investment that I was talking about earlier is going into data science. And what do we do with all the data? What does it mean? And when you talk about companies like Malzone at I forget the name of his company now, or Scipio and those guys, they're taking all this data, right? And they're making it usable for gym owners, facilities, fitness professionals, everybody in the industry, from point of knowing like predictive analytics of when someone is a retention risk, when someone is ready for an upsell, when somebody is ready to buy, all these various things. So it's a really, really keen time. And now you're starting to see new data sets come in that are even more exciting with AI on like Morpheus, the company I'm working with, which is the world's first recovery management platform specifically built for coaches and gym owners. Now we're starting to see recovery data, lifestyle data, all of these things come onto a single place. And it's going to be a humongous part of what the industry will look like moving forward. And probably the question people are asking now is like, okay, great. Well, how do I get part of that, right? How do I don't have a data scientist, nor do I know anything about it. Start to understand it. Start to pick a couple things that you can utilize, like a Morpheus or a Scipio or any of these companies who are maybe taking wearable data and making it useful for their clients. There's a lot of digital services, on demand, not on demand, but live streaming that are using wearable and data and AI to make a better experience for the clients and really getting more engagement through it. And the fact of the matter is, like, if we can figure out, and this is one of the biggest problems in the fitness industry, really since its inception, is we only get people in our gyms for maybe 3 hours a week if we're lucky, right? That leaves a lot of time outside the gym where we have no idea what is going on in their lives, right? We don't know what kind of stress they're under. We don't know how they're sleeping. We don't know how work is going. We don't know if they're doing additional training outside of the gym. And now we're starting to see insights and access into that. And that's going to be a huge component of how we work with our clients and how we stay connected with them outside of that time when they're in the gym. So AI is to be a completely huge topic. Yes, it's going to be an incredibly powerful force in what we do moving forward. It already is. You may just not know it yet. And it's time to just at least start to understand it, start to educate yourself on it and see how it works in your particular practice in your business. You almost have to.
Great, thank you. Really, really interesting insights there. Right, guys. I think we're going to have to wrap it up there, but thank you so much. I think everyone will agree with me when I say that was very, very helpful and interesting. And I think lots for people to take away there, especially on the content creation.